Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're going to have some mindless speculation on the future of DC Comics after the proverbial DC Bloodbath. Now we're not here in the man cave. I'm folding some laundry and I figured, hey, I should do a video on this before it gets too old, or I don't know, while I can still speculate with no knowledge of anything at all. So that's pretty much what this video is going to be. So it's been a day or two with DC Comics, and we've seen numerous things come out. A couple of things have not been confirmed, and so anything you hear today from me out of my mouth is just stuff that I've read or heard on YouTube. I guess I'm trying not to do like a whole bunch of random YouTubers and things like that in terms of sourcing, but lots of things from Games Radar, which is now Newsarama, or Newsarama is now part of Games Radar. Comic Book Resources, which is now CBR, or Bleeding Cool, which a lot of people shit on, but I find the most up-to-date, relevant stuff from Bleeding Cool, just in terms of like content, because Games Radar and CBR seem to have like a heavy promotional arm to them and bent, whereas like Bleeding Cool is just like, fuck it, we're just, whatever. So I do like that website. I know other people don't, but I guess it's part of being hated if you're the rumor monger among your industry. So, that being said, DC Comics had a massive layoff on Monday as part of the restructuring of Warner Media. All of DC Universe apparently is completely gone, and even though the writing was on the wall, I guess we were expecting more of a official announcement that DC Universe is going to be phased out instead of this. Well, I guess is going to happen because DC Daily ended in June, and that was like their premier content that there was going up every day on that service. And all the shows going to HBO Max. Doom Patrol launched simultaneously on DC Universe and HBO Max. You have Harley Quinn hitting HBO Max just the other day. And you have, Stargirl, which is a great show. I still have like 6-7 episodes left to watch. But that got announced that its season 2 is going to air exclusively on the CW. So that's now no longer even the possibility of going to HBO Max directly. So it looks to see that budget go down the way Supergirl's did when it hit season 2 and went to CW. So that DC Universe is completely gone. Who knows how long that service is going to be up? I can guess not very long, maybe through the end of the year, and that's it. Jim Lee is no longer publisher in charge of DC Comics. He's CCO, Chief Creative Officer. Who knows what that means? I guess he's kind of more of a figurehead now. And it was kind of weird to... I've never met Jim Lee, so I don't know, but my impression is that he's a nice guy. However, my impression of Dan DiDio was also that he was a very gregarious, nice guy. But after reading an interview with Janelle Asselin, I think today, it seems that DiDio was maybe not always so gregarious and nice and had a bit of a mean streak to him. As anyone who has ever met me in person can tell you, I have had my moments as well. But to do that in a work environment, I think is a little bit different. I don't think I've done that in a work environment. I have it in my home or my joking friend's life or college or whatever, but not necessarily at work. But I'm not a boss at work either. So, Jim Lee is now kind of side-saddled. He's no longer running the comic books, which I think might be an okay thing. Jim Lee has always kind of, to me, felt like maybe the pushover out of the Image guys, out of that original 7, He was the first one to sell to a major corporation, which was DC Comics and Warner Brothers at the time, maybe. Wildstorm is now owned by DC Comics, and, all of his characters have basically been sidelined. Who knows what's going to happen to them now? He wasn't even seeming to be a champion of them when he was publisher or co-publisher, which is kind of strange. So that's kind of weird. And it's also kind of a bit of a hit, too. Like, you had this powerful Asian man running a comic book company or co-running it for a number of years, and just as Dan DiDio got fired 2 months ago, he was the only one left standing, and it was like, wow, well, now you have an Asian man, running a comic book company. Let's see what he can do with it, and he never got that chance at all. So maybe he was more of the idea man or the yes man to DiDio and never really the staunch defender of anything. Although it seems like most of his ideas maybe were a little antiquated or blasé or so. He didn't really spice anything up. Like, he wasn't Joe Quesada coming in Marvel Comics and injecting a lot of ideas into it, whether you love One More Day or hate it. That's part of his era. But I think the beginning of Joe Quesada's run on Marvel Comics is something to take note of and behold. Whereas Jim Lee's, it's a lot of failures. I think the rebirth has been successful, but it has to come. It's always got a star next to it after the New 52 hit and kind of fizzled out within 5 years or so, and DCU and all this other stuff. So we'll see. But a lot of the editors are apparently gone. The guy who was running Black Label is gone, and I was surprised there because it seems like Black Label was maybe the best thing DC had going for it so far. I've have a couple of the hardcovers. I'm waiting on some others to come out, and now it's like, will those come out? Well, I don't know. We'll see, I guess. A lot of the old collections department is totally gone, so goodbye to any omnibuses or anything like that probably isn't printed yet. I don't think they're going to... The consensus seems to be that DC Comics is not going to be restoring or reprinting older material in a prestige format. So if you're looking for a reprint of an Absolute Edition, say goodbye. If you were looking for a favorite run to get an omnibus, say you wanted Dan Jurgens' 25 issues original Booster Gold to come to an omnibus, say goodbye to that. So that kind of stuff, all the recoloring and retouching, all that stuff's going to go out the window. You could probably just expect them to collect what they're printing currently. So that's kind of a bummer, because that's kind of one of the things that I feel like is feeding the industry in terms of, at least, comics YouTube anyway. There's a lot of channels devoted to omnibus reviews. You have Near Mint Condition, which is one of my favorite channels. I've been following them for a long time. You have Gem Mint Collectibles doing statues and omnibuses. You have the Omni Bros and the Omni Dog, and all these different guys who are, I think the Deluxe Edition is also another one I follow. All these different guys who are highlighting collections as they come out. And now it seemed to be like they were getting high view numbers, high view counts. Seemed to be like, they weren't reprinting these omnibuses just to reprint them. They had to have been selling somewhere. So somebody was buying these high-priced items. How many they were buying, who knows? But that's a different story for a different day, I guess. So maybe that'll probably stop. I don't know. What's more unclear, and this is where we can get into some dangerous areas, not in terms of weird speech or anything like that, but just dangerous because it's completely, pulling it out of your butt, or, it's not based in fact or any reality. Nothing official has come out in terms of this DC Bloodbath, from DC Comics themselves. They haven't appointed a new head of DC Comics or anything like that. There's no official statement or anything like that. So in terms of what DC's going to do in the future, who knows? So who's running it now? Well, you have 3 women that are running it now. The woman who was doing the young adult line is there. The woman who was running sales is there, and there was another third one. I can't remember. I'm sorry for not mentioning your names, but apparently they're just there temporarily. And the rumor after all, is that the Warner Media is trying to bring in somebody from esports to run DC Comics as a general manager, and that doesn't make any sense at all. Because number one, esports has zero to do with comic books. Esports is all about live entertainment and creating events and shoutcasting and hyping up things that are kind of blasé. And I hate watching other people play video games. I'd rather play them myself. That's just my opinion. I know a lot of people do enjoy it, but I can't stand it. So I don't want to see that happen, just because it doesn't make any sense at all. If you were bringing in somebody who had handled a group of characters, or maybe you were hiring a showrunner from a popular television show that might make a little more sense. So who knows what's going to happen there. Grace Randolph. The other rumor that's going around, and this is the one that I'm like, I don't know if this is going to happen or not. So pump the brakes on anything you hear me say after this. This is just speculation. Some would call it harmless speculation, but this is kind of harmful because there are people that might hear this and get scared about their business or jobs or future or whatever. But the speculation out there right now is that DC is going to phase out print weekly comics, and push towards a more graphic novel only format, which makes sense if you've seen the reports from ICV2 where graphic novel sales in bookstores outsold anything in your local comic book shop in terms of numbers. They sold more graphic novels in bookstores, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million than they did in comic shops, as well as in terms of revenue as well. So the growth is in the book market there, and that's been clear with this young adult line of graphic novels that they've been doing, and that's probably why the head of that division got tapped to help lead DC Comics in this interim. Now, is this going to be true? Who knows? I think there's a lot of blowback if you stop doing this. I was talking to my buddy Jim this morning, and he was asking me questions, and I was like, I don't know how you can still have a comics industry if you don't have print comics. There's a ton of people that still go there and buy print comics each and every week or once a month or whatever their habit is. I'm an all digital guy, but all digital counts for maybe 10% of the entire 10 to 20% of the entire comics being sold week to week. So it's not a huge market. I don't know that you can push people to digital. The other thing I'm not sure you can do, or I'm sure it didn't help at all, was this break in comic books we had from the pandemic from March to June, where we just got started back up here in July and August. You can blame Diamond for that, I guess, although it kind of does make a little sense of what happened or what they did because of their personal situation being in Maryland, and then also all the comic book stores not being able to be open throughout the country during that time. So it kind of makes sense to me, but not having any product able and giving people a break in their consumption probably doesn't help. It takes 21 days to create a habit, probably just as many to break them. And if you're not selling comic books for 2-3 months on a weekly basis, then you are breaking people's habit. So maybe they figured out, hey, I'm okay rereading the old stuff, or I'm okay not rereading anything. I mean, Empire came out and it's like pretty terrible. Thanks, Marvel Comics, for that trash. No one was really interested in a plant villain. But anyway, we can do that one later. So I don't know if you can end comic book shops. I mean, you can end comic book shops, certainly. You can do that by doing exactly what's being speculated here by not having weekly comic books or phasing them out. Because there are a lot of people that go in there and buy Marvel and DC only. That's all they buy. And if you take away one of those two companies, yeah, they might be buying a little bit more Marvel, but I guarantee you if they're a DC fan or, if they're any sort of like 50-50 fan, they're probably already buying the books they're interested in reading and or finding a way to read them outside of that in a different format. So I don't think that just because you're going to take away DC Comics from comic book stores that customers will spend that money on Marvel or Image books. I think they will probably just stick to what they were reading. We're all creatures of habit, and you may not branch out and try and read anything else. So I think that's a bad assumption to make that, comic book stores will be able to just survive on Marvel and Image and all the indies. I think that's false. There's no way that's going to happen. The game side of it seems to be safe, although I don't know why, because Warner Brothers Games really hasn't put out anything. I think the last thing they put out was, or the thing that's upcoming is like a Lego game for the Star Wars, like the Skywalker Saga, which is basically a repackaging of 3 other games they've already made. The last thing Warner Games did put out was a Lego Jurassic World game. Injustice 2 was like 2-3 years ago. We haven't seen shit from Rocksteady in 5 years, and that's pretty terrible. They are promoting a new Suicide Squad game, but that could come out in 2021. It could not come out this year at all. It came out in 2022. Who knows? The studio that was responsible for Batman Arkham Origins, which is a perfectly fine game, and I liked it a whole lot, they haven't done anything in like 8 years. So what is going on there? Shadow of War, Monolith, I think is the name of that studio. They did two Lord of the Rings games. What's going on with those guys? Where's their next game? So that seems to be something, like, I feel like you could easily do, I was talking with Jim about this too, you could easily do a Tomb Raider clone of that first game and plop in Green Arrow. He shoots arrows, Lara Croft shoots arrows, give Green Arrow a hand-to-hand combat, and you could do the same thing. Survive on an island, pull from the comics, pull from the TV show, call the island Lian Yu, and you have yourself a great third-person action Green Arrow game, and you'd have another franchise next to the Batman Arkham series. It's just dumb why they haven't been able to figure that out yet. I feel like you could do the same thing with melee combat with Aquaman and the Trident. Flash, I think, becomes a little bit more difficult. You could also do an old-school, 300 Rise style action game with Wonder Woman. Look at all the female protagonists we have in games now. I think it's high time for a Wonder Woman game. Where are these games? And why hasn't Warner Brothers been pushing these characters in games? It's just silly. People will buy a game if it looks fun to play and if it looks great graphically. That they've shown that. I mean, look at Horizon. Looks fun to play graphically. Looked pretty good at the time, and it was a new female character, and it sold pretty well. And you have the Wonder Woman brand behind a game similar to that, or similar to God of War or something like that, and that's a bigger brand than God of War. I think it would sell. I think people would buy a Wonder Woman game where she's ripping the heads off Minotaurs and stuff like that. Easy peasy. Would it go against most of what Wonder Woman's about right now? Probably. But you could set it in the past. I don't know, give her something wrong with her. Hell, you could make a Harley Quinn game with the same thing and make it comical, kind of like the Deadpool game. These are not hard things to do. You're out there to make money. Make some freaking money. But I think what this is going to come down to is that you're going to see DC Comics dwindle ultimately to just be, I don't know, placaters for the fans. I was watching Grace Randolph here on YouTube, and she's breaking it down, so I'm kind of rehashing a lot of what she said, so I'll give full credit to her. But I do agree with something she said. She said that the quality in DC comic books hasn't been there, in the last couple of years. And I do agree with her. Like, you see, she has a board up here where she's highlighting Wonder Woman, the movie, the Suicide Squad, Injustice, the Harley Quinn animated series, Doom Patrol has 2 seasons. Doom Patrol has 2 seasons. That's 24 issues. And it's got, or 24 episodes, right? And it's got more critical praise on the Doom Patrol HBO Max series than any Doom Patrol book has had probably in the last 25 years. Grant Morrison was writing the Doom Patrol, sure, but are they reprinting Grant Morrison Doom Patrol trades now or last year or leading up to this first series? No, absolutely not. Are any of them readable and understandable? No, I think what they're doing is bringing it to a level that's, mass media, mass market. And I think that's okay. I can certainly watch, I'll tell you this, and I would rather watch an episode of the Harley Quinn animated series than I would reading any of her issues of the comic book. I've tried to read a couple issues of the Harley Quinn with Palmiotti and Amanda Conner behind it, art, writing, whatever. I didn't get it. It wasn't for me. I also don't like reading Deadpool that much in comics. I don't know that humor works well with these wacky characters. I think it works better in movies and animation where you're able to do that humor and have it land because you can tell what it is, maybe. But Harley Quinn has Poison Ivy and Harley getting, being in a relationship, getting married. The comic books, they want to push that away for whatever reason. They don't want that at all. Why are they, fighting what the fans want, or finding what works. So it's kind of bizarre that you have television and movies taking further strides and furthering the characters than you have the comic books. So, and a lot of talent is going behind these animated shows or television shows and movies before they're doing comic books. So there's definitely a dip in quality there. So I think, in some ways, maybe they only have themselves to blame for not being more future aware, I guess. And then at the same time, it's not their fault. They didn't know this was coming. So certainly an interesting time for DC Comics, and a little bit fearful too. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you like this video, and we will see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.